Welcome to the edge where the line between defeat and domination is razor thin. The place where the world thought you'd fall, but instead, you rose. Not gently, not quietly. You rose with the storm, through fire, through ruin, through silence that almost broke you. And now here you are, not just standing, but standing over the battlefield they thought would bury you. Because this isn't about survival anymore. This is about transformation. This is about rebellion against everything they said you'd never overcome. And most of all, this is about the trap they set, the one you turned into their prison. They wrote your ending, but you rewrote the mission. They sent you to lose, and instead, you flipped the whole operation. They wanted to watch you break, but they didn't count on the monster they were creating. A monster not of hate, but of purpose. Not of rage, but of resolve. You walked into their jaws, not because you were naive, but because you knew something they didn't. You knew the pain wouldn't destroy you. You knew the betrayal wouldn't undo you. You knew the isolation, the mockery, the endless nights wondering if you were enough. None of that would finish you. You weren't just aiming to get out, you were aiming to win. And now, look around. The very walls they built to hold you back, you turned them into weapons. The truth is, they underestimated the quiet ones. The ones who don't boast, the ones who don't announce every step. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought stillness meant defeat. But your silence was strategy. Your stillness was study. You watched, you listened, you endured. And when the moment came, you didn't strike like thunder. You moved like the ground itself cracked beneath you. And they never saw it coming, because the trap they set was built for the old version of you, the tired one, the broken one, but that version died in the fire. You emerged forged in it. You didn't just flip the mission, you became the mission. You became the storm in the system they thought they controlled. They played a long game, setting rules, drawing lines, stacking odds, and you let them think it would work. Because the greatest power isn't in shouting that you'll rise, it's in letting them believe you're done, just before you explode back onto the scene, not as prey, but as the predator. You never needed applause, you never needed rescue. What you needed was time. Time to remember who you are. Time to burn through the layers they wrapped around you. Time to let the pressure do what it does best. Not crush, but create diamonds. Now they're the ones scrambling. Now they're the ones caught in their own snare. And you're walking through their illusions like smoke, untouched, unstoppable, and unafraid. They called it luck. They'll say it was timing. They'll say anything to avoid facing the truth. The truth is, you were always capable. They just hoped you'd never realize it. They didn't expect you to rise. They didn't expect you to rise with clarity, with conviction, with scars that tell stories and eyes that see through lies. You didn't rise alone. You rose with the weight of every lesson, every trial, every moment you wanted to quit, but didn't. And now you've become something rare. You've become the example no one wants to admit exists. The one who walked through everything meant to destroy them and used it all as fuel. And they don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to fight someone who's not chasing revenge, but transformation. Someone who doesn't care about proving them wrong, because you've already proven yourself right. The battlefield is yours now. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Every failure, every delay, every setback, it was part of the blueprint. And now you stand as the architect of a new narrative. One built on grit, one built on fire, one built on unshakable truth. You are no longer running from the darkness. You are walking through it, commanding it, and shaping it to your will. This speech isn't for the ones who had it easy. It's for the ones who were forgotten, overlooked, counted out, left in the cold with nothing but their breath and their will. It's for the ones who had to rebuild from ruin, who had to become their own hero, who had to fight battles no one saw and won them in silence. It's for the ones who turned their pain into power, their wounds into wisdom, their scars into strength. You didn't just survive, you orchestrated the fallout. You became the narrative twist. The trap didn't catch you. You studied it, took it apart, and when they came to check the results, they were the ones in the cage. That's not just survival, that's mastery, that's legend. So let them talk, let them wonder how you did it. Let them spin their stories. You don't owe them a single explanation, because real strength doesn't beg for recognition. It doesn't shout for attention. It builds quietly. It moves in shadows. And when the time is right, it emerges in full force, leaving everyone stunned. You didn't flip the mission for revenge. You did it for evolution. You didn't rise for applause. You rose for purpose. You didn't win for validation. You won because losing was never an option. Not for someone who's already been through worse and survived. The battlefield didn't define you. You defined the battlefield, and that will echo longer than their cheap victories ever could. So stand tall, not just because you made it, but because you made it mean something. The trap they set, it wasn't your downfall, it was your ignition. And now you burn with a purpose that can't be dimmed. You became more than they bargained for, more than they feared, more than they ever understood. You became a reckoning. They thought the battle was over the moment you hit the ground. They saw you stumble and smiled. They heard the silence and mistook it for surrender. They watched you fall and whispered, "That's it, they're finished." But what they never understood is that you weren't collapsing. You were coiling, preparing, tightening your grip on every ounce of grit still pulsing in your veins. Because sometimes, what looks like defeat is just the gathering of power for the next strike. And when it landed, it didn't just knock down walls, it shattered illusions. Their illusion of control, their illusion of superiority, their illusion that you were just another failed attempt at greatness. You didn't need to roar. You didn't need theatrics. The mission flipped quietly, decisively, like a tide that's turned before anyone noticed the moon had shifted. And when it hit, the same ones who set the trap were the first to cry out, not in triumph, but in disbelief. How could the one they mocked now stand at the helm of everything they tried to bury? How could the outcast become the architect? How could the wounded rise stronger than the ones who walked without scars? Because you learned, you adapted, you refined your pain until it became precision. You turned your confusion into clarity, and in the silence of your darkest moments, you built a new kind of power. Not the kind that needs to be loud, but the kind that lasts, the kind that endures, the kind that outlives lies, defeats predictions, and flips scripts written to erase you. It's no longer about proving them wrong. You've outgrown that. What you're doing now is rewriting the definition of resilience. Not resilience that merely survives, but resilience that evolves, conquers, and expands. You're not a survivor anymore. You're a strategist, a disruptor, a force they can't explain and never saw coming. They had the plans. You had the instinct. They had the tools. You had the tenacity. They had the advantage, on paper. But you had the one thing that can't be taught, bought, or broken. You had the will to turn pain into prophecy, and prophecy doesn't beg for permission. They set traps, yes. But those traps taught you their patterns. They taught you how they move, how they think, how they build, and how they fail. You learned their weaknesses because you lived through their attempts to break you. You studied their intentions not through books, but through battle. You learned the terrain because you bled across it, and now that battlefield is yours, not because you claimed it, but because you earned it in the fire they lit under you. Let them call it luck. Let them rewrite their stories so they don't have to admit what really happened, because it's easier for them to believe in chance than to admit they watched you become unstoppable and did nothing to stop it. But deep down, they know. They know they had you cornered. They know you should have quit. They know if the roles were reversed, they wouldn't have made it. They couldn't have made it. But you did more than survive. You engineered your rise right under their noses. The mission you flipped, it wasn't just about escaping. It was about rising from inside the trap, about becoming the threat they never prepared for. You made the betrayal your blueprint. You made the darkness your domain. You stopped asking for light and became it. And now, every step you take is a reminder that survival is just the beginning. Now, it's about domination. Not in cruelty, but in clarity. Not to hurt, but to never be hurt the same way again. You are the proof that storms don't destroy everyone. Some of us are built inside them. Some of us find our rhythm in the chaos. Some of us breathe deeper in pressure and sharper in pain. Some of us, when cornered, don't just survive. We rebuild the walls from the inside out, brick by bloody brick, until we are the ones setting the terms. So walk like you own the mission, because you do. Speak like you rewrote the code, because you did. They set the game thinking you'd fold, but you became the glitch in the system, the fracture in their design, the ghost in their machine. You didn't just get out. You evolved into the very thing they can't calculate. You became a variable too wild for their equation, and that terrifies them. Because people like you don't wait to be chosen. You become the answer no one expected. You don't follow paths. You burn them into existence. You don't wait for permission. You take the shot they never thought you'd reach for, and you land it. And now the rules have changed. Now, when they hear your name, they pause. Not because they respect you, but because they fear what they can't stop. You became the embodiment of what happens when someone refuses to stay broken. You became the wake-up call for every system built to keep the underestimated at the bottom. And now, others are watching you, silently, closely, because they need to believe that the mission can be flipped, that they too can rise from what was meant to ruin them. And they're right, because your victory is not a fluke. It's a formula. It's a testament to the unspoken truth. That grit beats privilege. That hunger outlasts talent. That silence sharpens strategy. And that when the overlooked decide they're done being quiet, the world changes. The system shakes. The predators retreat. You didn't just flip the mission. You became the movement. One that speaks without needing to shout. One that shows what it means to rebuild with purpose. One that doesn't need vengeance to validate strength, because strength is its own reward. And now, every day you rise, you become a living contradiction to their certainty. Every step you take forward is a statement. You were wrong about me, and I don't need your approval to prove it. That is power. That is freedom. That is what they can never take away. Because no trap can hold someone who no longer fears falling. No system can contain someone who built their wings from wreckage. No enemy can finish someone who already buried their old self and came back ruthless, not cruel, but clear. You've paid the price. Now you own the outcome. The scars? Wear them like armor. The pain? Use it like compass. The silence they forced on you? Let it be the echo behind your every move, a reminder that you are done waiting to be saved. You didn't just survive the mission, you flipped it, rewrote it, and walked out holding the playbook in your hands. And now, the only question that remains is this: what will you do next, now that they know they can't trap you? You stand now at a precipice, not of fear, but of power. The very forces that once tried to pin you down are trembling beneath the weight of what you've become. You have been forged by hardship, sculpted by struggle, and refined by every moment they told you, you can't. Every single no they spat, every cold shoulder, every setback, they were the sparks in the dark that ignited your fire. Not to consume you, but to illuminate a path no one else dared to walk. A path where every shadow cast was not a prison, but a challenge. And you accepted it, you owned it. They set the trap with arrogance, blind to the fact that traps catch only those who fall into fear. But you flipped it because you understood fear differently. You didn't run from it, you leaned in. You looked it in the eye and said, "You do not control me." That simple truth became the cornerstone of your survival, and then of your conquest. The trap was never the end, it was your beginning. When they watched you falter, they believed the mission was over. But the mission was never about surviving their expectations. It was about shattering the cage they built around you. And now that cage is broken, and you are the one holding the pieces, deciding what to build next. Every crack in the system, every flaw in their design is a victory. Not just for you, but for everyone who was told they don't matter, that they're invisible, that they're done before they even start. You became the storm inside their perfect plan, the chaos in their calculated control. They wanted order. You became the disorder that they fear. They wanted silence. You became the echo that haunts their doubts. They wanted submission. You became the rebellion they never saw coming. Because flipping the mission is not just a victory over circumstance. It's a declaration of identity, a claim to power they tried to steal and failed. Remember this: the mission is never just a single battle. It's every moment you refuse to give up. Every time you woke up knowing the fight wasn't over, but you were still ready. Every sacrifice made in the dark, every sleepless night, every doubt crushed by the steel of your will. Those are the true victories, the quiet triumphs that turn survival into legend. You didn't just survive the mission, they underestimated your capacity to evolve through it. They underestimated your will to transform their trap into a throne. Now, the mission is yours. Not because they handed it to you, but because you took it boldly, fiercely, without apology. You flipped the whole mission because you refused to be the victim of your circumstances. You became the victor of your story. You didn't just walk away. You rewrote the ending. And with every step you take, you remind the world that nothing built to hold you down can withstand the weight of your purpose. And this is where it gets real. The mission you flipped wasn't just about the past. It's about the future. The future you're creating with every choice, every action, every heartbeat. You're not here to just survive the next trap. They will come. They always do. But you are here to anticipate, to adapt, to overcome. Because flipping the mission is a mindset. It's a way of living that refuses to accept limits, refuses to bow to doubt, refuses to be defined by fear. You are a living reminder to everyone who's ever been told you can't, that they can. You are the spark in the darkness that shatters complacency. You are the proof that the human spirit is unbreakable when it's fueled by purpose. You are the reckoning for those who thrive on underestimating others. So own it. Own every scar, every setback, every moment that almost broke you and turned you into a force they never saw coming. Own the fact that you didn't just survive, you flipped the mission on its head and walked away with the keys to the kingdom. Own your story because it's one of transformation, resilience, and undeniable power. The world may never understand what you endured. They may never grasp the full weight of the journey, but that's their limitation, not yours. You've transcended their expectations. You've transcended the trap. You've become a force that will be remembered, not for the odds stacked against you, but for how relentlessly you tore through them. And here's the final truth. You are the mission now, the mission that no trap can hold, no doubt can shake, and no enemy can stop. You flipped the whole thing because you realized something vital. The real power isn't just in surviving. It's in rising, reshaping, and reclaiming everything they tried to take from you. This is your moment, not just to survive, but to thrive. Not just to move forward, but to lead. Not just to exist, but to conquer. You didn't just flip the mission. You became the force rewriting the rules of the game. The trap was never your end. It was your beginning. Now go, build, lead, inspire. Because you have done what so many said was impossible. You are living proof that when you refuse to be broken, when you refuse to be controlled, you don't just survive, you become unstoppable. They set the trap and got caught in it. But you flipped the whole mission. They never expected the quiet ones to rise. They never imagined the overlooked to become the architects of their own destinies. Because the world has a cruel habit of writing stories for us before we get a chance to live them. They script our failures, our limits, our endings. But you're the one who tore up their script. You stepped into the shadows they used to hide their traps and turned those shadows into your armor. The trap they set wasn't a cage. It was the crucible where you were forged, tempered by fire, made unbreakable. Every time they whispered doubt, you sharpened your focus. Every time they tried to corner you, you expanded your reach. Every time they thought you were finished, you rewrote what finished meant. They made their move thinking you'd be their pawn, their casualty, their forgotten statistic. But you became the wild card, the impossible outcome, the variable that couldn't be calculated, controlled, or crushed. And that terrifies them more than anything. Because people who flip the mission don't just break rules, they remake reality. They take every expectation, every barrier, every trap, and transform it into a stepping stone. They don't just survive the storm, they become the storm itself. And storms don't apologize. Storms don't negotiate. Storms change landscapes. This is your story. Not of victimhood, but of victory. Not of defeat, but of dominance. You didn't just walk through hell. You mapped the fire, learned its rhythms, and used it to dance. They tried to trap you in their design, but you bent that design until it fit you. You didn't break under pressure. You bent it into a weapon. You didn't fall into their trap. You made the trap fall. And that's the darkest, most beautiful truth of all. Sometimes the greatest power comes not from what you do when you win, but from what you do when everything says you shouldn't. When the odds are stacked, the lights dim, and the voices stop believing. You didn't just survive the silence, you made it raw. You didn't just survive the trap, you became the master of it. Others will ask how. They will search for answers in luck, timing, or chance. But the truth is simple and brutal. It takes relentless will. It takes a fire no storm can extinguish. It takes the courage to face your darkest moments and decide you will be the last one standing, no matter what. It takes the refusal to be a footnote in someone else's story. Because when you flip the mission, you claim authorship over your fate. No more waiting for someone to save you. No more hoping for a break. No more dancing to someone else's tune. You are the storm, the fire, the force that shifts everything beneath you. And the world? The world is waking up to the fact that you're no longer the underdog. They're the ones who are outplayed. Remember this as you move forward. The mission will never be simple. There will always be traps. But now, you see them clearly. You understand their mechanics. You know how to dismantle them, one by one. And you do it not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because you carry not just your own future on your shoulders, but the future of everyone who's ever been underestimated. You are a beacon in the darkness, a spark that ignites others to believe they too can flip their missions, rewrite their stories, and walk out of their own traps stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable than ever before. You are proof that survival is not just a state, it's a revolution. So keep moving, keep fighting, keep flipping every trap they set, because the world needs more warriors like you, more architects of their own fate, more people who don't just survive, but who flip the whole mission and change the game forever. They set the trap and got caught in it. You flipped the mission. Now, go show them what that really means.